The house was quiet, wrapped in a stillness that pressed against Olivia like a weight she couldn't shake, the kind of silence that made every small sound feel like a shout, and she lay awake in her bed staring at the ceiling, feeling the ache of loneliness that had settled into her bones over the past few months, ever since her husband had been traveling constantly for work and she had been left alone to manage everything with Nathan, her teenage son, whose presence had once filled the house with laughter and chaos but now seemed distant, distracted, and wrapped up in his own world, leaving Olivia to face the nights in solitude with only her thoughts for company, thoughts that darted and twisted, looping endlessly around worries about Nathan's future, the emptiness of her own life, and the deep, unspoken fears she had about whether she was enough as a mother, as a woman, as someone who had once dreamed of adventure and love and had now settled into the quiet routine of bills, meals, and the faint echo of a life she barely recognized, a life punctuated by the occasional knock on the door, the rustle of clothing, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and the distant sounds of cars passing on the street outside, carrying strangers who didn't know the tension, the longing, or the fragile thread that held their small family together. And as Olivia turned onto her side, seeking some relief from the restless thoughts that buzzed like a swarm inside her skull, she caught a soft, almost imperceptible creak on the wooden floor outside her room, a sound so faint that at first she thought she had imagined it, but then it came again, deliberate yet hesitant, a slow shuffle that spoke of careful steps and intention, and her heart skipped, an almost physical jolt that made her sit up, the thin blanket slipping from her shoulders as she strained her ears in the darkness, trying to figure out whether she should call out, whether it was a family member, a neighbor, or something else entirely. And then she saw the shadow, a slender figure gliding along the hallway, moving with a careful grace that suggested caution, uncertainty, and a desire not to be noticed, and her mind raced through possibilities, fears, and scenarios, all the while her pulse quickening, each beat echoing in her chest like a drum, until the figure paused at the door, and she realized it was Nathan, standing there quietly, clutching something against his chest, his eyes wide in the dim light, searching for permission, for acknowledgement, for connection, and she felt a mixture of relief and curiosity that made her heart soften, and without thinking, she patted the bed beside her, a silent invitation for him to come closer, to share, to speak. And slowly, almost timidly, Nathan stepped into the room, placing what he held gently on the floor before sitting on the edge of the bed, his knees drawn up, hands wrapped around them, as though trying to contain the storm of feelings inside him. And he looked at her with a seriousness that made Olivia's chest tighten, a gaze that carried a weight far beyond his years, the kind of look that spoke of late-night worries, hidden struggles, and questions about life that he didn't know how to voice, and she reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture meant to ground him, to let him know that he was seen, that he was safe, that he wasn't alone, and in the silence that followed, the kind of quiet that carries the tension of unspoken truths and fragile hearts, Olivia realized that this night, this moment, might mark a turning point in their relationship, a chance to bridge the distance that had been growing like a shadow between them, a chance to finally understand the boy she had raised, who was becoming a young man with fears, hopes, and emotions that mirrored her own in unexpected ways. And as Nathan took a deep breath, finally finding the courage to speak, his voice barely more than a whisper, she felt a shiver of anticipation, wondering what truths he would reveal, what confessions he would share, what bond they might rediscover in the quiet hours of a night that seemed both ordinary and extraordinary, and she knew, instinctively, that whatever happened in the next minutes, in this fragile, tender exchange, would leave a lasting mark on them both, a memory that would carry forward into days and nights to come, shaping the way they saw each other, the way they loved, the way they navigated the delicate, complicated dance of family, trust, and connection. And as she prepared herself to listen, truly listen, she realized that perhaps the house had never been silent at all, that the creaks, the rustles, the small sounds she had ignored were actually signals, moments, chances to reach out, to connect, to heal. And as Nathan's lips moved to speak, Olivia felt a flutter of hope, a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time, a feeling that whispered of understanding, empathy, and the possibility that love, in all its forms, could arrive quietly, unexpectedly, in the middle of the night. And with that thought, the room seemed to breathe with them, the darkness holding them in a cocoon of intimacy, safety, and the unspoken promise that whatever came next would teach them both a lesson about life, about each other, and about the strength found in vulnerability, and just as Nathan began to unfold his thoughts, the air seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment that could change everything, the moment that would reveal hidden fears, secret struggles, and the deep, unshakable bond between mother and son, a bond that had always existed but was now stepping into the light, fragile yet undeniable. And Olivia realized that the silence of the house was not emptiness at all but the quiet stage upon which a powerful, heartfelt connection was about to play out, a story of trust, courage, and emotional awakening that would stay with them long after the night ended, a story that began simply with a shadow in the doorway and a whispered, "Mom, can I talk to you?" and would ripple into every corner of their lives in ways neither could have predicted, shaping not only their relationship but also their understanding of themselves, their capacity to care, and the quiet lessons that life often delivers when we are willing to pause, listen, and open our hearts in the stillness of a single, transformative night. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to find the right words, the dim light of the lamp casting soft shadows across his face, highlighting the seriousness in his young eyes, and Olivia leaned closer, her hand still resting gently on his shoulder, offering comfort without pressing, letting him know she was ready to listen, truly listen, and for a long moment neither spoke. The quiet of the room filled only by the slow rhythm of their breathing, a rhythm that seemed to sync with the quiet pulse of the house, the creaking of the floorboards long forgotten, the distant hum of the refrigerator, the faint rustle of leaves outside, and finally, Nathan exhaled, a shaky sigh that carried months of unspoken thoughts, and he began, "Mom, I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes I feel like I'm lost," and Olivia nodded, encouraging him with a soft squeeze of her hand, signaling that he could continue, that there was no need to hold back, that this room, this moment, was a safe space, and he looked down at his knees, twisting them nervously as he admitted, "I feel like I'm trying to figure out who I am, and sometimes it's scary because I don't know what I want, who I want to be, and I feel like I have to hide it from everyone, even you," and Olivia felt a pang in her chest, a mixture of empathy and heartbreak, realizing how much he had been carrying silently, how many nights he must have lain awake wrestling with thoughts he couldn't voice, and she said gently, "Nathan, it's okay to feel that way. Everyone feels that way sometimes. You don't have to carry it alone," and he looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears, a mix of relief and fear washing over him as he whispered, "But I don't know who to trust, Mom. I feel like I can't talk to anyone without being judged or misunderstood," and Olivia held his gaze firmly, her voice soft but steady, "You can trust me, Nathan. Always. You don't have to hide anything from me. I want to know, I want to understand," and he took a deep breath, his small hands gripping the blanket beside him as if anchoring himself to something solid while he released the tension that had been coiled inside him for so long. And then he began to speak faster, words tumbling out in a rush as if a dam had broken, telling her about the pressures of school, the fear of not fitting in with his friends, the confusion of first crushes, the longing to be accepted and understood, the moments when he felt invisible, and the small victories he had never shared with anyone, and Olivia listened intently, absorbing every detail, feeling her heart expand with pride, sorrow, and a deep, unshakable love for this boy who was growing so fast, whose mind and heart were stretching into the world in ways she could see but not always reach, and yet tonight, in this quiet room, she could reach him, touch him with words, with presence, with unconditional attention, and as he spoke, she realized that he was not just seeking guidance but connection, a bond reaffirmed in the dark, a trust that could only be built when someone truly opens their heart, and she responded with questions that were gentle but probing, encouraging him to explore his feelings, to articulate the confusion and fear and hope inside him, all the while sharing little pieces of her own past, the times she had felt lost, the moments she had been misunderstood, the fears she had kept silent for years, and in doing so, she created a bridge between them, a space where honesty was not only safe but nurturing, and Nathan's eyes softened, his shoulders relaxing, the tension in his chest easing as he realized that vulnerability did not equal weakness, that expressing doubt and fear and longing could be a form of strength, and the room seemed to shrink around them, cocooning them in warmth and understanding, a temporary sanctuary from the outside world, where judgment, expectation, and the rush of daily life could not intrude. And as the hours passed, Nathan spoke of small moments that had seemed insignificant but now carried weight, like a friend's teasing words that lingered too long, a compliment he wished he had accepted, the quiet longing for a hug at the right time, the secret smile that no one noticed, and Olivia responded with warmth, anecdotes, and guidance, showing him that emotions are valid, that longing and heartbreak are part of being human, that attraction and affection are natural and nothing to be ashamed of, and as she spoke, she realized that these conversations were not just teaching him but also teaching her, reminding her of the complexities of growing up, of feeling, of loving, of being a parent while also being human herself. And Nathan's voice grew steadier, his sentences flowing more naturally, the earlier tremor replaced by a tentative confidence, and he said, "Mom, I think I've been holding so much inside because I didn't want to bother anyone, but I see now that talking doesn't make me weak, it makes me lighter," and Olivia's heart swelled, the sight of his vulnerability and trust filling her with an overwhelming mix of pride, relief, and a bittersweet ache, and she replied softly, "I'm proud of you, Nathan. You're learning to be brave in a way many adults struggle with, and I'm honored you trust me with this," and he leaned closer, resting his head on her shoulder, a simple gesture that carried layers of unspoken gratitude, love, and the relief of finally being seen. And for a long while, they stayed that way, breathing together in the quiet dark, letting the weight of unspoken fears dissipate in shared presence. And as Nathan finally closed his eyes, exhausted but comforted, Olivia reflected on the depth of his courage, the complexity of human emotion, and the extraordinary moments of connection that could appear in ordinary nights, and she realized that this exchange was more than just a conversation. It was a lesson in empathy, understanding, and unconditional love. A reminder that listening with patience and an open heart could transform fear into trust, loneliness into intimacy, and confusion into clarity. And in the gentle hush of that night, with Nathan sleeping lightly against her, she felt a profound gratitude for the opportunity to guide, witness, and participate in the unfolding of his heart, knowing that the trust built tonight would echo in countless small decisions, interactions, and quiet moments of life, that this night would remain a touchstone for them both, a memory of emotional honesty and closeness that neither time nor distance could erase. And as the first hints of dawn began to filter through the curtains, painting the room in soft gold, Olivia whispered a quiet promise to herself and to Nathan, a promise to continue being present, to nurture this fragile but resilient bond, to honor the courage it takes to open one's heart, and to cherish the simple, transformative power of confessions shared in the dark, knowing that these moments, fleeting as they may be, have the ability to teach lessons far greater than words alone, lessons of love, understanding, trust, and the extraordinary connection between parent and child, a connection that begins in listening, grows in empathy, and endures in the heart forever. The night stretched on, and the quiet of the house seemed to deepen, wrapping Olivia and Nathan in a cocoon of soft shadows and gentle silence. And as Nathan sat beside her on the bed, his head still resting lightly against her shoulder, he began to talk more openly, words flowing now without hesitation, sharing feelings he had never expressed before, from the small pangs of jealousy when his friends achieved things he had not, to the quiet embarrassment he felt when he noticed the first stirrings of attraction toward someone in school. And Olivia listened with her whole heart, her hand brushing his hair, her presence a steady anchor as he revealed fears, longings, and questions about the confusing and thrilling world of emotions that were new to him. And he confessed the loneliness he sometimes felt even in the company of friends, the quiet ache of wanting someone to understand him fully, and the moments when he doubted himself, wondered if he was enough, feared that his feelings would be misunderstood or dismissed. And Olivia nodded gently, offering small, comforting words, sharing stories from her own youth, times when she too had felt invisible, misunderstood, or swept along by emotions that felt overwhelming. And as she spoke, Nathan's eyes lit with recognition, with the realization that the struggles of the heart were universal, that vulnerability did not isolate but connected, and that expressing longing, attraction, or heartbreak did not make one weak but human. And he leaned in slightly, the tension in his shoulders melting as he realized that this quiet night, this intimate sharing, was a gift, a moment of clarity that gave him a sense of belonging and understanding he had not known he craved. And Olivia felt an unexpected stirring within herself, a mixture of nostalgia for her own youth, an acute awareness of her own desires and unfulfilled dreams, and a gentle recognition of the beauty of emotional honesty, of the way hearts can open when fear and judgment are removed, and she realized that love existed in many forms, not only the romantic or passionate, but in empathy, in guidance, in the deep, protective, and nurturing connection between a mother and her child. And in that moment, she understood that caring for someone fully required openness and courage on both sides, a willingness to confront one's own emotions while embracing another's. And as Nathan spoke of his first crush, the nervousness, the longing, the confusion of wanting closeness but fearing rejection, Olivia offered advice with tenderness, guiding him to see that affection could be expressed with honesty, that vulnerability could create connection, that longing could teach patience and empathy. And Nathan listened, absorbing the wisdom without feeling chastised, feeling instead supported, understood, and encouraged to explore his feelings in a safe space. And as the night deepened, he shared small regrets, little moments when he wished he had acted differently, words left unsaid, gestures unmade, and Olivia responded not with criticism, but with gentle reflection, showing him that mistakes and uncertainty were part of growth, that heartbreak, attraction, and longing were not only natural but essential, and that life's lessons often come wrapped in emotion, in subtle cues, in the way hearts respond to each other. And Nathan's voice softened as he realized that his mother's understanding was unwavering, that her presence validated his experiences, and that he could navigate the complexities of adolescence without fear of judgment. And Olivia felt her heart expand with a mixture of pride, tenderness, and a bittersweet awareness of how quickly he was growing, how fleeting these moments were, and how precious it was to witness his journey, to be a part of it, to guide and support while allowing him to explore and learn on his own. And as they talked, the discussion shifted to broader thoughts, to dreams, to the quiet longings that sometimes go unspoken, to the sense of wanting more from life. And Olivia found herself sharing her own reflections, the dreams she had set aside, the moments of desire for connection, the quiet sadness of longing for things left behind. And Nathan listened with a maturity that surprised even her, offering small observations, asking questions that showed empathy, and gently reminding her that love, in any form, could be transformative, that understanding another's heart could illuminate one's own, that the act of caring deeply could awaken emotions she had not allowed herself to feel in years. And as they sat together, side by side in the dim light, Olivia felt a profound clarity, a sense of emotional awakening that came not from drama or grand gestures but from the simple act of sharing hearts, of speaking honestly, of being present fully with another person. And she realized that this night, this conversation, was teaching both of them, Nathan about the courage to feel and express, Olivia about the power of connection and the subtle beauty of emotions that touch the soul. And in that understanding, a gentle warmth spread through the room, softening past regrets, easing fears, and creating a bridge of trust and intimacy that neither could have anticipated. And Nathan yawned softly, a tired but contented sound that made Olivia smile, knowing he had released burdens he had carried alone, that he had learned something vital about himself and about love. And she felt an unexpected tenderness, a gentle awareness of how delicate and profound these lessons could be, how the heart can teach in quiet, unassuming moments. And she brushed a lock of hair from his face, feeling the softness of his skin, the rise and fall of his chest, the steady rhythm of life and emotion intertwined. And she whispered words of affirmation, of love, of encouragement, letting him know that his feelings mattered, that his journey was valid, that he was seen and appreciated in ways that would stay with him forever. And Nathan, comforted, leaned back slightly, eyes closing for a moment. And yet, even in rest, he radiated a quiet energy of understanding, a sense of having gained insight into himself, into emotions, into the intricate dance of connection. And Olivia felt her own heart shift as well, realizing that these shared moments of vulnerability and openness had deepened her empathy, reminding her of her own emotional needs, her own longing for connection, and awakening within her a gentle, mature recognition of attraction, of desire not in any inappropriate sense but as a human longing for closeness, understanding, and intimacy that transcends age, a recognition of the depth of emotion that bonds people, the way hearts respond to care and trust. And as she reflected, she saw Nathan's face, peaceful yet contemplative, and she understood that life's lessons often arrive unexpectedly, in quiet moments, in conversations that reveal both strength and fragility. and she felt gratitude for this night, for this chance to guide, to witness, to teach and learn simultaneously. And as they continued to talk softly, exchanging insights about life, feelings, and relationships, Olivia realized that love was not only about passion or romance, but about presence, understanding, and the courage to allow another person into the deepest parts of your heart. And Nathan, in turn, was learning that the human heart could be trusted, that connection could be transformative, that sharing fears, longing, and affection could create bonds stronger than silence, stronger than fear, and that the lessons of love, gentle, nuanced, patient, and kind, were sometimes best learned in the quiet of a night spent together, sharing truths, acknowledging feelings, and understanding that to care deeply was to open oneself fully to life and emotion. And as the night began to edge toward dawn, with the soft first hints of light filtering through the curtains, Olivia felt a sense of completeness, a quiet fulfillment, a gentle ache of love that encompassed both joy and nostalgia, and she knew that this night, this sharing, had changed something fundamental between them, creating a lasting memory, a profound understanding, and a tender connection that would ripple through the days ahead, guiding them both, shaping their emotions, teaching them the subtle but powerful lessons of love, trust, and human connection that can only emerge when hearts are brave enough to open, when presence is given freely, and when the quiet of the night allows for the gentle unfolding of truths that illuminate life, emotion, and the enduring power of caring fully for someone. And Nathan finally relaxed, his breathing steady, a soft smile touching his lips, and Olivia held him close, feeling the warmth of the moment, the profound satisfaction of having nurtured his heart while awakening her own, and she whispered softly, "This is the lesson, Nathan. The heart grows stronger when it is shared, and love teaches in the quietest ways." And for a long time, they remained like that, wrapped in the delicate intimacy of the night, hearts open, emotions flowing, learning together, and knowing that these lessons, subtle but profound, would remain with them forever, shaping their connection, deepening their understanding, and reminding them both that love, in all its forms, is a teacher unlike any other. Arriving unexpectedly, quietly, and beautifully, the first light of dawn seeped softly through the curtains, painting the room in gentle gold, and Olivia stirred slightly, careful not to wake Nathan, who lay beside her in peaceful slumber, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm that seemed to echo the quiet relief and calm that had settled over both of them during the night. And as she looked at him, the events of the past hours played over in her mind, the confessions, the fears, the moments of vulnerability, the shared laughter, the quiet tears, and the intimate connection that had deepened between mother and son in ways neither had anticipated. And she felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a gentle glow that was part pride, part love, part awe at the complexity and resilience of the human heart. And she reflected on the lessons that had unfolded so naturally in the quiet darkness, lessons about trust, empathy, emotional honesty, the courage to speak, and the profound impact of being truly seen and heard. And she realized that parenting was not only about guidance and protection but about presence, about holding space for another person's feelings, fears, and dreams, allowing them to explore their emotions without judgment, and in doing so, teaching them that love is patient, understanding, and quietly transformative. And as she watched Nathan sleep, she thought about the moments earlier in the night when he had opened up about longing, confusion, attraction, and heartbreak, and she recognized how vital it was for a young heart to have a safe place to process these feelings, to hear that they were valid, natural, and part of growing up. And she understood, with a clarity that was both humbling and uplifting, that life's most meaningful lessons often come in ordinary, unassuming moments, when two hearts connect honestly and vulnerably, when words flow freely without fear of judgment, when presence alone communicates love more powerfully than any advice or admonition ever could. And she marveled at the maturity Nathan had shown in sharing his thoughts, the courage it had taken to trust her with his inner world, and she felt a surge of hope, knowing that this trust would be a foundation for their relationship, a bond strengthened by honesty, empathy, and shared emotional growth. And as she contemplated the quiet of the early morning, she realized that she herself had learned something unexpected, that witnessing another person's vulnerability and responding with patience and love could awaken her own heart in ways she had not expected, bringing back feelings of longing, reflection on her own youth, the subtle recognition of attraction and emotional desire that was gentle, mature, and natural, and she smiled softly at the thought that love, in its many forms, could be both comforting and enlightening, both tender and transformative, and she understood that these feelings, while complex, were a reminder that being human meant experiencing the full spectrum of emotion, from joy to heartbreak, from longing to fulfillment, and from fear to courage. And as Nathan stirred slightly, shifting in his sleep, she brushed a soft strand of hair from his forehead, feeling the warmth of his skin, the rhythm of his breath, and the palpable sense of peace that had replaced the tension and worry of the previous days, and she whispered a quiet promise to herself and to him, that she would always be present, that she would continue to guide without judgment, that she would nurture their connection while allowing him the space to grow, explore, and learn from his own experiences. And she realized that this night had been a turning point, a moment of awakening for both of them, a night when the ordinary became extraordinary through the simple act of being fully present, listening deeply, and allowing emotions to flow freely. And as the sunlight grew stronger, spilling into the corners of the room, she felt the house itself breathe with them, as if acknowledging the profound shift that had occurred, the emotional awakening that would ripple through their lives, shaping interactions, decisions, and feelings for years to come. And she reflected on how the lessons Nathan had learned about courage, vulnerability, and expressing love would continue to guide him. Just as she had learned about the power of empathy, emotional honesty, and the subtle beauty of human connection, and she realized that the quiet of the night, the intimate sharing, and the gentle unfolding of truths had created a memory that would endure, a touchstone for both of them in moments of doubt, confusion, or longing, reminding them that hearts can grow stronger when they are open, that love teaches in unexpected ways, and that connection, even in silence or darkness, carries the potential to transform, heal, and inspire. And as Nathan's breathing deepened into a calm, steady rhythm, Olivia allowed herself to linger in the moment, feeling gratitude for the trust he had placed in her, for the vulnerability he had shared, for the insight into the human heart that only such intimacy could bring. And she thought about how fleeting these moments are, how easily they can be overlooked in the rush of life, and she resolved to cherish every small gesture, every quiet word, every shared glance that affirmed love, understanding, and presence. And in that awareness, she felt a gentle, almost sacred serenity, a profound appreciation for the bond between parent and child, the subtle power of emotional honesty, and the extraordinary lessons that unfold in the quietest hours, lessons about patience, empathy, longing, and the delicate beauty of human hearts intertwined. And she realized that these lessons were not just for Nathan, not just for her, but for anyone who listens, who cares, who opens their heart and allows connection to guide their understanding of themselves and others. And she marveled at the simplicity yet depth of such moments, the way a single night could carry so much significance, the way a conversation born of courage and trust could shift perspectives, heal old wounds, and awaken new awareness. And as she watched Nathan begin to stir, stretching gently, she felt a sense of completion and continuity, the knowledge that life would continue, challenges would arise, emotions would ebb and flow, but the foundation of trust, love, and presence they had built would remain unshakable, a quiet force that would guide them, comfort them, and remind them of the power of shared hearts, of moments held in silence, and of the subtle, profound revelation that love, in all its forms, is patient, tender, transformative, and enduring. And she knew that as the day began, carrying light, opportunity, and the promise of life, both of them would move forward differently, with greater awareness, greater compassion, greater courage, and greater appreciation for the extraordinary lessons that emerge when two souls connect in the quiet hours of the night. And as she kissed Nathan softly on the forehead, feeling the warmth of the early sun on her own face, she whispered again, not only as a mother but as someone who had been touched, changed, and awakened by the night's revelations, this is what it means to love, to learn, and to grow together. And in that moment, with the world awakening around them, the house bathed in gentle morning light, the bond between them stronger than ever, Olivia understood fully the beauty, the power, and the quiet majesty of connection, trust, and the unexpected lessons that life delivers in the stillness, the shadows, and the fragile, tender spaces where hearts meet. And she smiled, knowing that the night's revelations would remain with them forever, shaping not only their relationship but the way they approached love, empathy, and life itself, a soft, enduring lesson in courage, understanding, and the profound Intimacy that emerges when we are brave enough to open our hearts fully and listen deeply, to both give and receive love in its purest, most transformative form.